as a public health official and a scientist, you're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science.
Dr. Anthony Fauci's advice to the American people during COVID is coming under scrutiny. Fauci's testimony in 2024 before the House Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic, both in a transcribed interview in January and his public hearing in June, has raised serious questions regarding his guidance on masking, social distancing, and vaccines during the height of the global pandemic. Fauci's shifting stance on face masks is perhaps the most well-known of his changing recommendations and one of the most controversial. In March 2020, Fauci said there is no reason to be walking around with a mask.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks. It could lead to a shortage of masks for the people who really need it.
By June, however, Fauci began touting that masks were essential for stopping the spread from asymptomatic infections, even though he said they are not 100% protective.
Even though a mask is not 100% protective, but it does give you some protection.
Also, over summer 2020, Fauci changed his tune about the efficacy of masks from his initial stance in March.
I mean, it's sort of respect for another person and have that other person respect you. You wear a mask, they wear a mask, you protect each other.
That July, Fauci said, quote, "Cloth masks and homemade masks were as good as masks that you would buy from surgical supply stores." During his House transcribed interview 4 years later, however, Fauci walked back the efficacy of cloth masks. When asked by Republicans about masking children, Fauci said he did not recall reviewing studies about the effectiveness of their protection for children. Fauci and the whole White House coronavirus task force led the charge on promoting social distancing as a necessary step to slow the spread of COVID in early 2020.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people, where in circumstances where there are crowds, you remove yourself from very close contact. You can actually socially distance yourself from your workplace by doing teleworking.
4 years later, however, Fauci told Congress the recommendations sort of just appeared. Although Fauci insisted during his public hearing before the Select Subcommittee in June 2024, it was the CDC's decision to make and had nothing to do with the NIH, Fauci was part of promoting the 6 feet distancing rule as a member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force. Fauci's position on COVID vaccines has completely changed over the course of the pandemic. In May 2021, Fauci said that the vaccines were very effective.
So even though there are breakthrough infections with vaccinated people, almost always the people are asymptomatic, and the level of virus is so low it makes it extremely unlikely, not impossible, but very, very low likelihood that they're going to transmit it.
When pressed by Republicans in June 2024 about the vaccine efficacy, Fauci admitted that the efficacy of the vaccines only lasted several months rather than providing sustained protection.
In the beginning, it was felt that, in fact, it did prevent infection and thus transmission, but that was proven as time went by to not be a durable effect.
Fauci says his position on the efficacy of COVID vaccines evolved with the changing data. However, his critics point to the amount of times his comments flip-flop as making him unreliable.